Hi folks, and welcome back to Meaningful Money. Okay, still here at St. Loy on my log. This is one of my favourite places to film actually. It's nice and quiet. Beautiful sunny day, quite windy though, so it's always windy in Cornwall. My brother-in-law Ian always says that it's always windy here, and as soon as he crosses the Tamar when he comes to visit, the trees are all bent over, and sure enough it's a windy day today, so I have to get into the woods out of the wind. No sense in being on the cliffs or anything, or on a beach in this weather. So we're finishing off our success factors. Remember though that Meaningful Money is brought to you with the help of my good friends at 7 Investment Management, so thank you to them. The last of our success factors is emotion. Right? We've talked about time, cost and risk, the things which can make or break your financial planning success. Emotion though is probably the one that I deal with almost every day in my job as a financial planner. Because, as I've always maintained, money is about people, it's about you, it's about what you want to achieve. The rest is just mechanics really, but how people deal with and relate to their money is just all important. You see, investing and financial planning is basically a science, no matter what advisors might tell you. There are sort of fundamental rules to financial planning, which we've dealt with many times on this show. You know, spend less than you earn, put the rest aside, invest wisely, have a goal and stick to it, things like that. It's pretty much a science, but all those things can be overruled by our emotions sometimes, and particularly when things are going badly, okay? So we need to be careful to avoid our emotional response to what's going on in the world, what's going on with our money. We need to avoid that derailing our financial planning success. Okay, so a few things to think about here. And the first one I've already alluded to, and I mentioned last time as well, it's to have a plan and stick to it. If you've got in mind something you want to achieve, a particular goal or target for your money and for your finances and for your life more importantly, chances are you're going to be more motivated to stick with it even in the face of short-term uncertainty. Now life has a habit of throwing things at us, you know, things that we can't expect. But there are things you can do to make sure that they don't affect you too much. So the classic one, which we dealt with really early on, back in the sort of teens episodes, excuse me, is you know, what happens if you get ill or if you die early? You know, you can insure against those things to ensure that, for the most part at least, your financial planning stays on track. So if you've got a plan and stick to it, those clear goals that you've got can help focus the mind. So it's really important that you spend time with your advisor or your planner, or just on your own with your spouse if you're a couple, making sure you clearly define those things so that you can stick to them in the face of short-term difficulties. Okay, so that's the first thing to think about. The second thing to do is to tune out the noise. Right? I mean, we live in the, you know, the internet world now. There's so much information out there, so much noise about what's going on in the world, the right things to do with your investments. I mean, you know, in a sense, I'm adding to that noise by doing these TV shows, but you need to tune that out and stay focused on what it is you want to achieve. I mean, I remember back in 2008, I remember going into a pub, and this was when Lehman Brothers and everything and the credit crunch was really starting to bite. And there was a whole lot of papers laid out for people to read, and the headlines were incredible. I think it was the day after Lehman's went bust and the stock market was just plummeting, and the headlines were like Armageddon, you know, apocalypse. And you know, this is not helpful. You know, my phone was ringing a little bit because people were concerned about their money. But I was able to educate and teach people, say, look, you need to filter that out. You know, we've set up your investments such that they can cope with most volatility in the market. So tune out the noise. Be careful what you listen to, be careful what you read. I'm not going to tell you, obviously, wouldn't be so bold as to tell you which papers to read and not to read. But I like the FT because it's dispassionate. You know, it's all numbers and facts, and there's not a lot of fluff with it. But each to their own. But just be careful what you read, be careful what you listen to, and don't let outside voices derail you from achieving your goals. Okay, ignorance sometimes is bliss, But I think education is better, and that's why I do these things. And that's why a large part of my job is educating my clients to hold their nerve if things are looking pretty bleak in the short term. And I tell you what, the clients I'm seeing now that I've had for the last 5 or 10 years, you know, they're very glad they didn't bottle it when the credit crunch was hitting hard and didn't take their money out of the market, because they've done very well since. So tune out the noise and don't let it sway you. You need to avoid the major pitfalls of emotional response, and there's 4 of them, you know, primarily. It's not an exhaustive list. The first one you need to avoid is market timing, okay? Unless you're like a really reliable clairvoyant, you have no idea when the market is going to go up or down, okay? By the time you read in the papers that something is a really great investment and is going really well, it's way too late to invest in it, okay? Because all the smart people invested in it when it was out of favor. Don't try and time the markets. Don't put your money in when markets are soaring away, and certainly don't take your money out when markets are falling, okay? There's so many studies and statistics to show that that is the surest way to derail your investing success. Just don't do it. Instead, invest for the long term. Have a plan, build a portfolio, make sure your diversification is right, get help with that if necessary, and then stick to it, all right? Don't fall into the trap of market timing. Secondly, the pitfall of chasing performance, okay? Reading about a particular fund manager who is a star and he's always doing extremely well. Chances are next month or next year he'll be at best mediocre. Don't chase performance. Don't always look for the thing which is hottest at that time. It's a surefire way to be disappointed, okay? Thirdly, third pitfall is miscalculating risk, basically getting it wrong. You need to know your limits, okay, and work within them. Work with your advisor to know how asset classes perform, even at the extremes, and ask yourself, am I prepared for my money to fall by 10%, 20% in the pursuit of my long-term goal? Know your limits and make sure you get the calculation of your risk right. If you can't do that, and I understand why ordinary people might not have any desire to do that, then get a good advisor who can talk you through it, okay? And as a slight aside, if you have an advisor who doesn't speak to you when markets are plummeting, you need to find a new advisor. That's when an advisor really proves his worth, is when he's on the phone to you, reassuring you, saying, look, we know this can happen, but remember our long-term goals. That's what a good advisor will do. The final pitfall to avoid is overweighting. It's linked, if you like, to the last one. Whatever it is you think is the best investment of the moment is piling too much money in there and becoming overweight in that particular sector, be it gold or property or emerging market shares, whatever. Don't overweight. Instead, make sure your spread is right. Determine your asset allocation with the help of an advisor if necessary, and stick to it. All right? So those are the 4 major pitfalls: market timing, chasing performance, miscalculating your risk, and overweighting. Try and avoid those at all costs. Okay? Keep your emotions in check. The problem is we are emotional beings. It's very difficult for us to distance our emotions from our money. But keep your eye on the long-term goal, and that can help you overcome short-term worries. And that's where a good advisor can really prove his or her worth. Basically, I'm convinced about 80% of my job is counselor. It's being on the end of the phone and reassuring people when they're concerned. All right? So, you get a good advisor. I would say that, I know. But a good advisor can really help in this and just be a good sounding board. Okay? So those are our success factors: time, cost, risk, and emotion. Get those right, and you're certainly more than halfway there towards investing and financial planning success. So, no idea what I'm going to talk about next, but for now, thank you for watching, and goodbye from St. Loy.